Hello guys and welcome back to another Openshift tutorial. In the last one, we created Openshift users and today we are going to create Openshift groups and assign users permissions using different ideas. The first idea is that we assign someone permission on the entire cluster. So that's a cluster level permission. And the second idea is that I assign the user permission on a single project or what we like to call a namespace. Both the ideas work fine and you can do whatever you want. If you have a permission, you can assign the permission to a single user. For example, if I have a user, I can give him a role. Or if I have with me multiple users, then I can put them into a group. So another idea is that I create multiple users, or if I already have them, in that case I can put them on into a group and assign the permission on the group. A permission assigned on the group automatically assigns to everyone who's part of the group. You can work however you want to, but generally we see working with groups is much more easier. For example, if I have a user, I can delete that user from the group and the permission will automatically be removed from the particular user. So that idea works better. In today's tutorial, I want to show you how we can create groups in OpenShift, how we can add users into the groups, and then how we can provide permissions on the respective groups so they will automatically apply to everyone who's part of the group. What we can also do is assign someone permission individually, but we don't recommend you work like that unless and until there is a specific need for you to do so. Permissions can be assigned on a namespace level, as I said earlier, and they can also be assigned on a cluster level. OpenShift comes with a lot of permissions available by default, and you can use them. However, custom permissions can also be created that I will show you in the next tutorial. But today we are going to use the permissions that we already have as part of OpenShift. So let's come to our cluster. And the first thing we want to do is run the command oc get users. This will show us all the users that already exist in OpenShift. As we can see, we created 3 users, Aryan, John, and Jane, which are already there, and the developer user and the cube admin user that my cluster came with. Now I can create some groups. So let's check out the documentation. You know, so I will also share this documentation with the YouTube description of the video. So now we have the idea of a group. So how do we create a group? We can use the ocadm groups command to create a group, and we can run ocadm groups. And if you don't know what to do next, run --help. And now we can see that we have a new command available to create a new group. But how does the command function? So you can run ocadm groups new --help again. And this shows you how do you create a group. So ocadm group new and the group name. We can do something like ocadm groups new DevOps. This will end up creating a group known as DevOps. And a second group can be created ocadm groups new auditors. So now I have 2 groups with me, and oc get groups command will prove this, that we have 2 groups, but right now we don't have any users who are a part of these groups. Now that we have the groups created, the next thing I want to do is add users into these groups. For that, I can again use the ocadm groups command. I can do ocadm groups and --help again. And I have the add users option, which allows me to add a user into a group. So I can do ocadm groups add users --help again. And I can check the usage. So first comes the group name and then comes the username. And OpenShift also gives you examples. So if you want, you can add a single user like they have here, or if you want to add multiple users, you can also do that. So I have some users with me already. I can run OC ADM groups, add users. Group name, there's auditors, and users John and Jane. And run the same command for the DevOps group with the RN user. So now if I run OC get group or groups, however you want, both the commands work. You can see that these users are part of their respective groups. The same commands can also be used to remove users if you want to do that. Once the users are assigned to the groups, now we want to assign permissions. I can assign the permission on the namespace level or what you call the project level, as well as on the cluster level. For example, if I have a group, I can assign the group a permission, and for that we can use the OC policy command. If you're doing it on the namespace level, so we have OC policy. And if you're doing it on the cluster level, then we have OC ADM policy. So both the commands are available, policy for namespace, ADM policy for cluster. Now what I want is that a DevOps group should be cluster admin. So anyone who is part of the DevOps group should have complete control on the cluster. And as the name is suggesting, the auditors group should be the view only permission. So they can take a look at everything in the cluster, but they can't take a look at any important resource such as nodes, and they can't create or delete resources because they have a view only permission. So I can configure this via the OC ADM policy command, because the permissions that I'm referring to are applicable on the entire cluster. I'm not referring to permissions on a single namespace. So I can run OC ADM policy, and I don't know how this command functions, and I don't need to panic. I can run --help, and I have a lot of options available here. Now you are not working on a project level, you're working on a cluster level. So we will use add cluster role to group. And if I were working on a project level, I would do add role to group. So we are going to use add cluster role to group. So OCADM policy, add cluster role to group, and --help to check out the usage. So we first have the role name and the group name. Now you can refer to the Openshift documentation to figure out what is going to be the name of the permission to use. For example, if I want to give someone the cluster admin role, I'll use cluster-admin, and the group name, that's going to be DevOps. And similarly, I will use the view permission or the view role on the auditors group. And all these commands that I'm running are part of the Git repository that you can refer to. I will share that link in the description. Now the permissions are assigned, so I can log in as these users and see whether it's working or not. If you are the cluster admin, you should be able to run the OC get nodes command. So I can do OC login -u rn and the password for the RN user. And running the OC get nodes command gives me the output as well. Because I am the cluster admin, I have access to the entire cluster. And if I log in as a Jane user or the John user who are part of the auditors group, OC login -u John, and run the OC get nodes command, it gives me an error that I can't do this because I'm not a cluster admin. However, I do have the view permission. So I can check out the other resources. For example, OC get deployments -A that shows me all the deployments that are part of the cluster for every single project or namespace. And I can do the same thing with the pod OC get pods -A. I can go inside a particular project. So OC project default, I'm already part of that. OC get pods, there is nothing here. I can do OC new app. Will this work? It should not work because I am an auditor. I have the view permission only. So I should not be allowed to create a resource. --name web app. hyphen image nginx. And here I have with me an error, which is that the user don't cannot create this. Why? Because you are a view only user. You are not allowed to create resources. You don't have the respective permission. This way we can prove that the users that we have created are able to work according to their requirements. And this is something that's a very common OpenShift objective, that you will want to create different users and assign them different permissions. In the next video, I will show you how you can create custom permissions. For example, you want a user to only work with services, or you want a user to only work with deployments, nothing else. Then how could we do something like that? We'll see that in the next one. Check out my video on OpenShift installation if you have not, and try to do this yourself.